Hello world. So Colin Kaepernick has me thinking about two concepts that we often get caught up in, whether we know it or not. These concepts have a couple of different names depending on what lenses we're looking at them through, but I'm going to call them heresy and orthodoxy. Now, the orthodox thing to do when the national anthem plays is to stand up, hand over heart, and take your hat off. The heretical thing is to sit down and do nothing. One thing that's especially interesting to me about heresy regarding symbols of America, like flag burning or opting out of the Pledge of Allegiance, etc., is that America itself was originally conceived as a heresy against a different orthodoxy, namely allegiance to a monarchy. Part of our national identity is an affirmation that rebellion and dissent are valuable. So anybody who's acting out of rebellion or dissent has at least a claim that they're acting out of American values. And in fact, the same is true of the most popular religion in the country, Christianity. The Jesus of the Gospels flouted Roman law, and in fact, the entire significance of his story depends on the fact that he disobeyed the established order of the time. Jesus says, "He who is greatest among you shall be your servant." Thomas Jefferson says, "I hold it that a little rebellion now and then is a good thing." But something happens to heresy. If it is defeated, it disappears. If it succeeds, it tends to calcify into the next orthodoxy. So we get the hegemony of the Roman Church during the Middle Ages, or the version of American history that's taught in American middle schools. And in the extreme, we get the Inquisition and the House Un-American Activities Committee. At points like this, the process has come full circle, and these great experiments in heresy have become orthodoxies of their own that seek out, condemn, and punish their own heresies. Once that happens, anyone can claim any stance for or against the established order is American, un-American, heretical, orthodox, licit, illicit. So which is it? Well, heresy has been one way in which orthodox systems have grown and learned in the past. America is a bigger thing after the anti-war movement. Christianity is a bigger thing after Martin Luther. But not every heresy is on equal footing, and not every orthodoxy is either. Anyone can cite heroic examples of either one to justify their stance. Our forefathers were rebels, so therefore Cliven Bundy's armed standoff with the government is patriotic, like they were. Or our forefathers were rebels, therefore the Occupy Wall Street movement is patriotic, like they were. Clearly, it's not enough to know whether something is heretical or orthodox to know whether it's good or bad. As a first pass, we might try to figure out whether the principles of that heresy align to the principles of some original heresy, the American one against monarchy, say, or the Christian one against the establishment of Jesus' day. Once we do that, though, we're bound to ask what makes that heresy worth aligning with. And we might have to trace it back even farther. The religious establishment against which Jesus of Nazareth rebelled is supposed to have descended from Moses' rebellion against Pharaoh, for example. If we decode the chain back far enough, we will find some basic principle of human well-being. For example, human rights, codified and enforced by due process, promote people's well-being better than arbitrary rule does. Heresy in the service of that principle might survive to form an institution, like a constitution, against which there could be further heresies and further institutions, like a Civil Rights Act, and so on. At any point, heresies can come along that totally oppose the underlying principle too, like neo-Nazism. Offending the status quo is a good way to get your cause noticed, but by itself doing that doesn't tell us very much about the cause or its merits. It's only when we examine the cause itself that we can determine that, for example, spurning the national anthem to highlight injustices perpetrated against African Americans by law enforcement is in line with the principles of the Civil Rights Act, which is in line with the principles of the Constitution, which is in line with the principles of the Enlightenment, which is in line with the principle of human rights and due process. For a good rule of thumb as far as American heresies go, though, if you're advocating a position that could just as easily be held by supporters of a dictatorship or a monarchy, you're probably not being that patriotic. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Look forward to your comments. Bye-bye.